Big Mouth Season 4 was released on Netflix only yesterday, and boy was I waiting for this season to come out. I'd been craving a fix of some more of that humour from Nick, Andrew, Maurice and Connie. And, well, it was definitely worth the wait. So, how does Season 4 compare to the previous 3? And is it the best season yet? Well, let's find out. Before I go ahead, make sure you go over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. So without further ado, I'm Brainpilot, and here is a review of Big Mouth Season 4. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers, so watch with caution. The story. The story of Season 4 picked up exactly where I expected it to, straight after Nick and Andrew had their argument and they separated and went to summer camp. This was then when we essentially saw the other side that you often hear about, summer camp, where the myths, rumours and legends are made. I thought it was great that the show decided to take the group off to summer camp, as we had never really seen them outside of their suburban environment for an elongated period of time, and we saw them interact with new characters in a completely different way. This is where we were introduced to Nick's summer camp version of Andrew, Seth, voiced by Seth Rogen. This character was perfect in the show. We saw a summer version of Andrew that was ever so slightly more confident and embodied all of Seth Rogen's comedy and humour. He played the part really well. This is then when we saw Nick become the butt of summer camp jokes. This is after Andrew arrived at summer camp, and himself and Seth grew a tight bond and pushed Nick to the bottom of the pile. This is then when we see what I suppose we would call the antagonist introduced, the anxiety mosquito. I thought these creatures were perfect in this season, and played the part well. The constant biting, buzzing, and flying around personifies anxiety, and the feelings you actually have when the mosquitoes are around in real life. We see both Nick and Jesse experience the anxiety mosquitoes at camp for different reasons, and I think the creature most definitely applied to both characters well. After introducing the show's first trans character, seeing Jesse get a period like no other before, and other sexual crude visual jokes such as Andrew not being able to go for a poo, camp was over, Andrew and Nick made up, and the group went their separate ways. I thought the first few episodes of the summer camp section of the season was great for a variety of reasons. We got to see the gang in a completely different environment, where we'd never seen them before, and we also saw Nick and Andrew reconcile over the past of what happened with Missy. We also got some hilarious moments of Maurice and Connie, which is a given. One standout moment was when the lake started getting absorbed by Jesse's pad. As the season progressed, once the group returned to their homes, this is then when we see the anxiety mosquito take its full effect. I liked the way that it hit everybody at different stages, and also about completely different things. We saw Jesse get anxious due to being the new girl at school and not quite fitting in. Matthew being anxious coming out to his family, Andrew being anxious about the fear of death, and Nick being anxious about essentially not being cool. This all happened at different points in the season, and it was often followed by a former companion, such as the Depression Kitty or the Shame Wizard. I liked that due to the fact that anxiety isn't this one-size-fits-all thing, and you would most likely experience other feelings and emotions whilst anxious, so I thought the show handled that really well. I feel as though Season 4 had a great narrative of everybody coming to terms with who they are, and getting over their anxieties and progressing forward. I did notice that I felt like all of the characters were quite separated this season. It felt like their stories didn't intertwine as much as I would have liked to. For example, Jesse being in the city, Nick battling his future self, Jay and Lola being together, Matthew coming out, Andrew fearing death, and Missy embracing the colour of her skin. The group only really came together in the end when it was time to save Nick, and I would have definitely have liked to have seen them together more often, as I feel like that's one key thing that the show does really well, all of the characters bouncing off each other. Season 4 definitely provided its signature style of humour in the show. Some moments that I absolutely loved was the Globerman method. That had me in absolute stitches, and also basically whenever Maurice opened his mouth. That character is one of the most well thought out characters in an animated TV show, and I know as soon as Maurice is on screen, I'm going to be laughing my head off. There were a couple of different styles of episodes in the show, such as episode 6, where we went into the future inside of Nick's head. It's something the show's not done before, but I thought it was executed really well, and it was still understandable. And also episode 7, where we saw Maury and Connie essentially watching an episode that contains sections on each of the characters. Although different to what we usually see, I think they provided some great humorous moments, and did well to tie into the overarching story of Nick's anxiety. I believe that the last version of Nick that we saw sat in the dark in the puddle, naked, was the original Nick that we saw before he was bitten by the anxiety mosquito in the woods. And all of the other versions from then were pushing that original one deeper and deeper behind. I love the fact that at the end, Nick came to terms with who he is, and that's all you need to be happy, to be able to accept yourself. The finale of the season had everything you wanted from one. It had a lot at stake, a big battle scene between the Gratitoad, which I'm going to say was a great character, Nick facing his former self, and good triumphing over evil. Everything you expect to see in a finale. Plus, a nice musical number to close the season. It was the perfect way to finish the show. I think the narrative of this season was great, and the characters felt like they had matured in a way that felt natural. Although not together all of the time like we saw in the earlier seasons, I thoroughly enjoyed watching each individual story arc, and cringing, laughing, and covering my eyes when moments that I've learned to expect Big Mouth to have would arise. The crude humour is a given in this show, and I love the fact that I can't get this humour in any other show. It's not just jokes about penises and poo, but it's actually got a strong narrative that provides a story that allows you to connect with these characters that we're watching. Season 4 had a great story. The characters. Nick. Nick is one of the main two characters in the show, and after following him for 3 years, I was interested to see the direction he went in Season 4 as he entered 8th grade. I feel we saw a character that stayed true to his roots, and if I'm being honest, I found him the funniest in this season compared to his other portrayals in the previous 3. There were some one-liners where he was being brutal to Rick the Hormone Monster, and I was in absolute hysterics. This Nick seemed more blunt, and I loved that. I think this character had a lot to battle with this season, and it was all handled well. Nick Kroll does a phenomenal job in bringing this character to life, and what is normally my second favourite character in the show quickly became my favourite this season. Andrew. Andrew Globerman is usually my favourite human character of the show. However, this year he fell short to Nick. He provided tons of laugh-out-loud moments, but the spotlight fell off of him slightly this season and focused more on Nick. There were moments in Season 4, such as all of the masturbation stuff around his routine, thinking he killed his grandpa, and his anxiety around death, which I thought were key focuses of the show, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching them. The character didn't have a love interest this season, other than the one with one of the cafeteria girls, and I'm quite glad he didn't, as we got to see him focus on himself more, and really get to learn more about the character Andrew. Maurice. Maurice is hands down the funniest character in the entirety of the show. In fact, he's easily one of the funniest characters on television right now. Whenever he's on screen, I'm in stitches, or I'm eagerly anticipating a laugh, rude joke, or visual comedy that is unique to the character and the show. He is a young boy's mind personified, and I think the show does a great job with this character. I genuinely couldn't fault the performance in the slightest. There are moments that come from absolutely nothing and steal a scene. I love everything about this character. The appearance, his voice, his humour, it's just perfect. Connie. Connie is the co-hormone monster, the hormone monstress, and like Maurice, she embodies the mind of a prepubescent teenager. Whilst not being quite as good as Maurice, she does definitely bring the sass, drama, and humour to the show. Jessie. Jessie in Season 4 was a slightly more impressionable city girl that we hadn't seen on the show before. I feel as though we saw a side to the character that we hadn't seen. We saw the effects of the anxiety mosquitoes hit Jessie the hardest, as it also caused the depression kitty to also make an appearance. Despite the battles that she was facing with not feeling like she belonged anywhere, in the end, we saw her shrink the depression and anxiety. And just her being around her friends, especially Nick, it brings out the best in her, and gives her that place of belonging. I enjoyed the portrayal of Jessie this season. It felt like a slightly more mature approach. Missy. Missy was a character that I was looking forward to watching in this season. One, for her new voice actor, and secondly, because of the storyline that she was given. Her story was quite separate and she didn't get too involved with the others, but hers was more of a journey of self-discovery and understanding who she is. I thought this was a great story for the character to have, especially following on from the fact that they recast the actor due to the BLM movement and wanting more representation on the show. I thought Missy was great this season, and I think I preferred this character in Season 4 when compared to the previous 3. The Anxiety Mosquitoes. Now, these were the new creatures on the block. We had the Depression Kitty, the Shame Wizard, and now the Anxiety Mosquito. I thought they were a great inclusion to Season 4, but I do feel I would have liked to have seen them a little more than what we did. I feel like they were crucial to the show and the development of the story. But when comparing the Shame Wizard in Season 2, for example, I feel he got a lot more screen time and allowed us to have more of an understanding. We would only see the Anxiety Mosquito from time to time, which did work, but I would have just liked to have seen more. The cast and characters were great this year, and I don't think that I could fault a single performance. The only thing I would say is I do wish we got to see more of the character Jay and Lola. I feel like they weren't necessarily integrated into the group as much this season, which is fine as they did have their own arc going on, but it would have been good to have seen them slightly more integrated. Final thoughts. Overall, I would say that I thoroughly enjoyed Season 4 of Big Mouth. The story, the characters, the humour, it was all on point and had the uncomfortable, innovative style that we only get with this show. As I mentioned, I would have loved to have seen the group on screen together a little more, but it didn't impact the overall viewing experience. Big Mouth provides us with humour like no other, and I think it has definitely cemented its place as the best animated sitcom on Netflix at the moment. I think this show is great, and I hope it gets commissioned for another season. So, there you have it. What I think of Big Mouth Season 4. What did you think? Who's your favourite character in the show? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.